British shipyards build vessels for the fleets of the world. In their docks are constructed tankers, freighters, liners, ships of war. This is the story of the first ship ever built for the Royal New Zealand Navy, Her Majesty's New Zealand ship Otago. Otago is a Whitby-class frigate, as dangerous to submarines as they can be to surface shipping. She is a hunter of submarines, fast, easily handled, equipped with the most efficient aids to detection. At Southampton, 3 years of work go into building Otago before she's ready for delivery to our Navy. From New Zealand comes the crew which will man her, take her through weeks of trials and sail her home. 15 officers and 200 ratings, that's Otago's complement. In June, these men come aboard to begin 3 months of workup exercises. There'll be speed trials, mock battles, trials against the weather. Men must have time to find their way about a new home. No hammocks here, bunks for everyone. Air conditioning too. The ship is compact and it's crowded, but it's comfortable. These days, boys leave home because the Navy's cooking is better than mother's, and the Navy provides automatic dishwashers and potato peelers. There are buffet serveries. In fact, all the good things of modern culinary science. A few days settling in and trials are due to start. On comes the ammunition, torpedoes, shells for the 4.5, shells for the Bofors. The Otago is making ready for a very serious game. On come the mortar shells to be fired by electronic command at a tracked-down enemy submarine. Such weapons seldom miss. Equipped as she would be in war, Otago slides out into the English Channel to begin her working life. The ship is going to school. The battles she'll fight with craft of the Royal Navy are only part real. No vessels will go to the bottom, no planes will be shot down. Yet Otago will be handled as if she were fighting for her life. The ship and her crew will be judged on their powers of survival. The first test is underway, not a battle, but a tricky refueling exercise. In a running sea, the speedy Otago must keep abreast of a slow tanker. The oil with which Otago is fed drives the steam turbines that can take her up to over 30 knots. The tanker pulls away. Otago is waiting for the next stage of her workup. Attack from above and beneath the ocean. This is the time in war when men must really know their ship, know how it works and what it can do. The day is now past when a duffel-coated skipper handled his ship while striding an open bridge. From this dimly lit room, the captain controls Otago's fight. The murmur of voices and the hum of computers are the only sounds as an electronic brain calculates the position of an underwater enemy. Even an atomic submarine must approach within 5 miles of a ship before it strikes, well inside the range of Otago's detectors. Hunted down, the enemy rises guiltily to the surface. It couldn't have escaped. Every twist and turn of its evasive action was followed on Otago's plotting table. The new frigate has done well in her trials, and the seamanship of her crew is proven. The Navy knows what to expect from Otago if she should ever have to go to war. In a few days, she'll be ready to sail home to New Zealand. For a little while, Otago lies in the pool of London. She takes on stores for the homeward trip. Boxes of this and that, all the things dear to a sailorman's heart. New Zealand pallets don't like margarine. A New Zealand ship must carry New Zealand butter. Royalty visits Otago to wish her Godspeed. Princess Margaret, who launched the ship, comes aboard with her husband, Mr. Anthony Armstrong Jones. For them, a New Zealand as well as a naval welcome. How often has a Maori haka been performed in the middle of the River Thames? November the 17th. Goodbye to the barges and tugs of the Thames on this London winter's day. Like countless ships before her, Otago moves slowly down the river. She slides under the great iron span of Tower Bridge. Down past Deptford, the British Navy's first dockyard. From here sailed the ancient mariners in their wooden frigates. In the fading light, Otago passes Greenwich Naval College and becomes, as she enters the estuary, one small part of this river's naval history. Destination, Dunedin, the port of Otago. Ports of call, Gibraltar, Malta, Suez, Aden, Colombo, Singapore, Fremantle, Melbourne. 2 months on the high seas, the Atlantic Ocean, the Mediterranean, Arabian, the Indian Ocean, the South Pacific. A new ship sailing for the first time the shipping lanes of half the world. Otago's at Gibraltar. For 250 years, Britain's bastion in the Mediterranean. New Zealand sailors, like any tourists, photograph the pampered apes who helped the British guard their rock. On to Malta as Gibraltar falls astern. Malta's the crossroads for Mediterranean travellers, and if on arrival some sailors have to work, as sailors must, there's enough time in port for everyone to see the sights. An old, sun-baked place is Malta, built up of things British, Greek, Moorish and Spanish. A dusty island, but never too dry. In the late afternoon of November the 25th, Otago leaves the grand harbour of Valletta as she found it. Yellow buildings piled high above the Mediterranean blue. At Suez, there's a delay. With other ships, Otago drops anchor and waits for a convoy through the canal. By sunset, the weather has cleared, and a pilot launch comes bobbing out in the day's end glow. Otago prepares to go into the cut by night. morning and time to move on. 13 days out from London, the weather's warm and should be even warmer in the Red Sea. Surprise, surprise, a silent ship wafts through the desert and sailors go below to ponder Egyptian mysteries as they work. Jack afloat is a resourceful fellow, familiar with labour-saving devices as well as steam turbines. Alas, there's no Jill aboard, and Jack must do the ironing himself. Sailors still learn how to tie knots, though days may pass without them handling a piece of rope. The modern sailor tradesman is a specialist, working with machines he knows, be they electrical circuits or 15,000 horsepower engines. He may be at once both able seaman and skilled technician. Otago bowls across the Arabian Sea, 5 weeks away from New Zealand and due for a stop at Colombo. A fever for buying spreads through the crew. A good port, Colombo, for articles in brass or teak and ornaments to put upon the mantelpiece. And would such a saleslady overcharge a uniformed traveller? Maybe not, but the price is still too high. Names are ticked off and the daily rum goes down. In all seasons and all weathers, the Navy makes sure its men don't go thirsty. Christmas is near, and Otago will spend it in Singapore. With pleasure, sailors sign for their pay. The frigate enters the Royal Naval Base, HMS Terror. Singapore is one of the largest and cheapest department stores in the world, and the last exotic port at which Otago will call. People of every nationality spend their lives here in buying and selling, making deals about pieces of silk and pieces of oil companies. It's a free port, and men from Otago soon find the best place to buy. Change Alley, which is, by chance, right next to the Bank of America. You name it, Change Alley has got it. The sailors are on their last big buying spree of the trip and making the most of it. South from Singapore moves Otago and through the Straits of Sunda. The equator has been crossed. The ship is in its own southern hemisphere and bound for Australia. In the tropics, the air-conditioned nights pass pleasantly enough. There's room for privacy and quiet if they're desired. And always groups who play the Navy's wild version of Ludo. They've seen a lot of the world, these young men. Quick visits to Fremantle and Melbourne, and this ship's first voyage will be done. Fremantle is West Australia's biggest port, built at the mouth of the Swan River, a few miles downstream from Perth. Australian girls and Australian beaches are much like those at home, and seafarers appreciate them both. This brief visit is like a gentle re-entry into New Zealand's atmosphere. Australia's is almost the same. Melbourne's eyes are on the cricket score. Like most New Zealanders, Otago's men feel quite at ease here. Cast off. Ahead lie 4 days on the Tasman, and on the 5th day out from Melbourne, Dunedin. The temperamental Tasman weather sneers at Otago, and wind and sea put up a blow. This ship can take it. Otago has travelled 13,000 miles on her maiden voyage, and now is in New Zealand waters. She has proved a good ship, and this has been a good passage. On January the 19th, she sails into Dunedin to make her first berthing at a New Zealand port. Her Majesty's New Zealand ship Otago has arrived home.